Yo, what up? What up? Welcome back to another episode of Coach Walker TV. So, on today's episode, I want to have a little discussion about a subject that I covered in a quick short that I did about Coach Prime or Coach Deion Sanders knowing what he's doing as a head coach. I just want to talk about some points, that I did not get to cover in the short and try to make it make a little bit more sense from a coaching perspective. So let's jump right into it. So with Coach Prime, you know what I mean, Coach Deion. First of all, I'm gonna preface this whole thing by saying I'm a Deion Sanders fan. I remember I'm old enough to remember Deion playing football. I watched him with the Falcons. I watched him with the Cowboys, with the 49ers. I was always a big fan of Deion. I was a Florida State fan growing up with college football. So I always appreciated Deion what he did on the football field, and I'm a fan today, and that's why I'm gonna talk about what I'm gonna talk about. He did great at Jackson State, but now that he's on the FBS level and he's in this big spotlight, a big time Power Five college football, the flaws start to show a little bit from a coaching perspective, and the real question does become, does Deion know what he's doing as a head coach? There are some concerns that Deion is doing daddy ball. He's got his sons out there playing. He's coaching his sons. He's been coaching his sons since they were in little league, and so that could be a thing. How long is he going to be at Colorado? I mean, me personally, I think he's going to leave when his sons are done. To be honest, just like he did at Jackson State. I mean, he's not promising that he's going to be anywhere for any length of time, and nor should he have to. I mean, he's a grown man. He kind of do what he wants. But the first thing I want to talk about, like with his coaching style, like Deion, from a head coach perspective, I feel like there are, archetypes to head coaches, right? You got the different styles, and I think that Deion is more of a motivator and a recruiter type of head coach. That's his style. That's what he does best. He can motivate a team. He can recruit some good guys and get them up in there and get them to come to Colorado and play in the cold, because that's the other thing. The weather's cold out there. And so you're going to, and skill guys that he's getting, when the weather gets cold, things change. Receivers trying to catch hard, cold footballs are hard to catch. When a quarterback like Shador is throwing them, he's putting the ball on the money, throwing it with some velocity, throwing it with some zip, some speed. So that changes things. But I think with his motivating factor, his recruiting factor, and then also what helps too is his star power. I mean, some people just want to be there because it's Deion, but does that also hurt him? Like the star power part I'm talking about, like his star power. You see him on all the commercials. You see him with the shades on and the chains. Now that's his style. I'm not mad with it. I'm not criticizing the shades and the chains and those things like that. But the star power that it brings. He's on Snoop cereal boxes now. So there's a lot of attention that comes with his star power, and you can't say that's always a positive thing. Just the other night when watching the Colorado game versus Oregon State, they're going to put the camera on Deion 100 times in the game, throughout the game. Every little play, every little thing, the camera goes on him. You don't even know who the coach from Oregon State looks like, or what he looks like, or who he is, because everybody's talking about Coach Prime and Coach Sanders. So I don't know if that helps or hurts him at the head coach position. I think it may hurt him just a little bit, that, especially that star power, because how much focus is really going in on the team and what we have to do to be better as a team. Because as a head coach, there's a lot of things to manage, especially at that level. You got multiple coaches. You got your offensive coordinators, you got your defensive coordinators, position coaches, game planning. There's a lot that goes into it. And I'm gonna talk more about this offensive coordinator situation and the changes that he made here in a minute. But that's the thing, that star power. But I think he's a great motivator. I think he's a great recruiter, and his star power. But I don't know if that star power helps him. It might hurt him more than it helps him when it comes to being a head coach. Now, here's the other thing. Deion as a head coach, obviously Deion's not an offensive-minded head coach. Deion spent most of his career playing the defensive side of the ball. As we know, he did play some receiver, but he was never a offensive guy primarily. He was always primarily a defensive guy. Now, as a head coach, I feel like you gotta be a little bit balanced. Me personally, as a coach, if I'm a head coach, I'm gonna be more of an offensive-minded head coach. But at the same time, I do understand my defenses, and I do understand, certain situations on when to call certain defenses and what kind of defenses I would like to see. I feel like Deion doesn't necessarily know what to do with his offense, right? He has an offensive coordinator. He's already made a change, but I feel like he's wanting to stay hands off on his offense because he doesn't know what to do with his offense if he just had to all of a sudden take over with his offense. Yes, we know that they're having offensive line issues, and here was my biggest thing with the offensive coordinator situation. And I just saw this watching the Oregon State game the other night, and I've watched the majority of Colorado games this year. Like I said, I'm a Deion fan. I'm rooting for them, man. I hope they do well. But as a football fan and as a football coach and as a football person, I can watch football and see certain things that are not correct and are not right, and things that you should switch a little sooner. So, as an offensive coach, here's the thing: Deion had a situation where the press asked him in the post-game interview, what about his tight end situation? And here's what Deion had to say.
That's just the preference of the OC of the call in the rhythm of the game at the time, whether we use the tight end to block, whether he use, if we're going to throw the darn ball, I'd rather receiver be out there. That's my preference than a tight end. We got 4 or 5 pretty good guys that can really catch the ball. They can really run good routes. They can really get open. You saw that at the conclusion of the game.
Now, we heard what Deion said. If they're going to throw the football, he prefers to have his receivers out there. He prefers basically to go 5 wide. But here's the issue: your offensive line is struggling. It's going to be hard to go 5 wide when your offensive line is struggling. I don't care how good your receivers are, how fast they are, how well they run routes, how well they catch, and I don't care how good your quarterback is. It could be Tom Brady back there for all I care. And Shedeur Sanders is a man. Like, he is a great quarterback. They have some good receivers that they throw the football to. They have some great skill players overall. But here's the thing: none of that matters if you cannot protect the quarterback. Me as a head coach, if I know that I'm having an issue with protecting my quarterback, change your personnel. Forget, hey, we want to throw the football, I'm gonna put 5 receivers out there. No, let's don't put 5 receivers out there. How about let's get into a 12 personnel set. Let's get our 2 tight ends out there, our 2 receivers, and a running back, and maybe I split my running back, or I'll substitute a receiver for one of my running backs, right? But I have to protect my quarterback. That it has to be a thing. And that was the thing that concerned me about what is going on in Colorado with Coach Prime and the adjustments that he's making. We can change coordinators all day, but are we going to change? Are we going to adjust to what we do well and what we don't do well? If we know we can't block well, maybe we need to add some protection, add some tight ends to help chip block. They can still get our routes, but we have to protect the quarterback. So that's a concerning thing, and going forward, we'll see if they change that. All my football heads out there, let's pay attention to that. Let's see if we make any changes, or if Colorado makes changes going forward when it comes to like personnel sets and how they're going to protect and how they're going to move the football. And then here's the last thing I'm going to talk about, but it's very important, and I think it's an underlined and I'll say underrated and underlooked stat, right, or overlooked stat. Let me say it that way. The Colorado Buffaloes lead the FBS in penalties per game with 9. They're averaging 9 penalties per game. That is the highest. 9.3 to be exact. So if you add the 0.3 in there, they're the highest out of the 130 FBS schools. They are the highest penalized team in FBS. That is a big stat. It is hard to overcome penalties. If your offense is already struggling, and I know all the penalties don't come on offense. However, that penalties obviously gives up yardage, right? So the more penalized team you are, the more yardage you're going to give up. And here's the one thing I've always said as a coach: if you're a highly penalized team, that has a lot to do with discipline. It definitely does. And I'm not saying that Deion or Coach Prime is not a good disciplinarian, or his team doesn't have some discipline instilled in them, because I know they do. I can tell just by the way the style that he coaches. However, there has to be some lack of discipline within the team to be the highest penalized team in the country as far as the FBS schools. So listen, that's it. That's all the things I wanted to cover. Look, y'all, comment. We can make this a discussion. If it gets interesting enough, I'm sure I'll be back to talk about this again. But make sure you comment, share, subscribe, especially if you like the content that I'm bringing just on this sports news. But Coach Prime, ultimately I think he'd be all right, but I don't see Coach Prime in Colorado in 5 years, just keeping it real. All right, so y'all be good. Again, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see y'all on the next episode. Peace.